consume so much sugar that there's just not even enough in these fruits and vegetables to overcome the amounts of sugar we eat. And it's so difficult to avoid sugar. It's not like, oh, I'm going to avoid table sugar. No, it's everything. It's breads, rolls, cakes. Nothing doesn't have sugar in it that you buy today. And you just can't live on just vegetables. So the fruits have sugar in them, good natural sugar, but even those have been bred to be so sweet and have so much sugar, you get overwhelmed with the amount of sugar. So you have to truly supplement your diet with the natural sugar chaperones so they can go with that sugar and your body can return to a healthy carbohydrate metabolism. An article came out in Scientific American that said, Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes. So here's the picture. If you take sugars, refined sugars, by themselves, your body thinks it's a poison. You constantly get inundated with that poison. Not once, like with the poison ivy, not once, like with a bee sting, or a hay fever, or an allergen. Constantly, every day, every half an hour, you get up, you start eating refined carbohydrates, you drink them, you have them for lunch, you have them for between meal snacks, you have them for dinner, and you have them before you go to bed. That constant barrage leads to a low-level, constant inflammation, and your body eventually starts breaking down. Very similar to smoking cigarettes. Not everyone who smokes a cigarette gets cancer. That's certain. But a lot of people do get cancer from smoking cigarettes, and this is very similar. Not everyone who eats refined carbohydrates is going to get diabetes, but a lot of them do. It is the major cause. So if this happens now in adolescence, you get type 2 diabetes and acquired diabetes. It's not so drastic as to shut down your pancreas, but you have insulin resistance. It shuts down the ability of insulin to process that sugar. We were looking at that underlying response. As we looked at diabetes and weight management, we saw what was going on. Your body sees the poison, inflammation comes on, and then you have a disease. So we found out these sugar chaperones shut down that inflammation, and they reroute the sugar to keep it out of fat tissue where it doesn't belong and put it into your muscles and your brain tissue. Your brain, by the way, can only live on glucose. That's the most simple sugar. It can't live on anything else, just sugar. So we help that process along where it should be. So you take sugar with sugar chaperones. This is normal. You have normal carbohydrate metabolism. That's what we're talking about. In the case of sugar, if you have sugar without one of these sugar chaperones, your body says, okay, there's a poison. I'm going to attack you. I'm going to stick you in the fat tissue. That, by the way, is what the body does to all poisons. It tries to put it in fat tissue. So if you take too much mercury or lead, it goes into your fat tissue. It's just trying to isolate it, get it out of the way. That's the main purpose of insulin, is to take sugar and put it in fat tissue. Most of the diseases that we are looking at today are inflammatory diseases. Asthma is one, cardiovascular. The ones I've talked about lately, diabetes, it's an inflammatory disease. And now we know that Alzheimer's is a response. It's an inflammatory response. They all have the same underlying principle. What happens is you have an attack on the cell. Your body thinks it's being attacked. Then it sends out the troops in your body, whether it's on your skin, like in poison ivy, or your pancreas, and it starts to try to help. Unfortunately, if it keeps up, if the cells continually are attacked, and you have continual inflammation, that's when your cells break down. It's going on in your brain too. It's going on in your brain. Inflammation is not something that's just on your skin. It's inside your walls of your arteries and veins. It's happened in your brain. Your brain is constantly under bombardment of a poison, refined sugar. You just don't know it. Everyone is under a long-term, subtle inflammation. You're alert. You can sleep better. You're relaxed when you do wake up. It's because this is where you should have been, and you just didn't know it. Cholesterol is a Band-Aid to try to cover up the wounds that you have caused by having inflamed inside of your arteries. So when people tell me I've got high cholesterol, I say, well, that's just a symptom. You've just got Band-Aids in your body. And leads to scarring of that tissue. Wounds, micro cuts, micro abrasions. Your body sends out cholesterol as a bandage to cover those wounds. That's why your arteries get clogged, because it's full of bandages. Sounds kind of funny, doesn't it? But it's not that the cholesterol is the problem. Again, it's the underlying inflammation. Get rid of the inflammation, the body won't produce cholesterol. So if you take something like Emulin, which lowers blood glucose and helps the blood glucose get out of your blood into where it needs to go, like your muscle and your brain, then you won't have the inflammation. You don't have the inflammation, your body cholesterol drops because it's not needed anymore. So yes, that's why people can take Emulin and have lowered their cholesterol. It doesn't attack cholesterol directly. It gets rid of the underlying inflammation. We eat too much. We eat too many calories. Now, people have told me, well, what about all these Big Macs? Well, you know, it's not actually the meat patty and the grease and the fat. That really doesn't bother you too much. It's that bread and those French fries and that vanilla shake. But it's true, there are a lot of calories in fats and meat. This is not a magic pill. Eat sensibly. And Emulin will help you get back on the right track. It converts the sugar into the non-refined, natural type of sugar. Now you have sugar and Emulin together. It doesn't think it's a poison. You don't have the inflammatory response, and that craving is not triggered. Your body does not see that as a drug, and you do not get that sense, I've got to have more, I've got to have more. So it takes that completely away from you. A lot of people that report after having Emulin for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, a couple of weeks, they say, I no longer crave bread. I no longer have that drive to have a sandwich. Why do you eat a sandwich? Because of bread. I love it myself. I stopped eating potato chips. I just don't want them anymore. Well, now they're free to eat a normal amount, and they don't have that drive to eat more and more. That way, with Emulin, I bet you can eat just one. So the other side of that is you lose the inflammatory response, and the pure refined sugar causes that inflammation. And why do you think the sugar gets in the fat tissue? It's not because it's trying to store excess energy. That is a fallacy that most people just do not understand. Insulin's job is to take poisons and sugars and put them in the fat because they're bad for the body. It's not because it's excess calories. That is not the reason. Let me repeat that. You don't get fat just because sugar is getting stored in fat tissue. It's indirectly you're getting fat. You're getting fat because the body sees the sugar as a poison and it puts it in fat tissue. If you've got lead in your body, where does the body put the lead? In the fat tissue. Why is it bad to eat some types of fish? Because they've stored mercury and these heavy metals in their fat tissue. Their bodies are doing it just like ours are. There's a poison, it puts it in the fat tissue. So that's insulin's job, to put it in the fat tissue, not because of excess calories. There's no one in the womb. Its mother should be taking Emulin. It's just like vitamin C, vitamin D, E, K, all the vitamins. Everyone needs them. So everybody should be taking Emulin. If we had made this discovery a few decades ago, we would have classified it as a vitamin. That's not how the world works today. The regulations are different, but it would be, vitamin P or whatever. So everyone needs it, and you cannot take too much because you will excrete it either through your urine or it'll migrate to your skin. Also, older athletes, professional athletes. We have former members of the Boston Red Sox that take this product. They're like 50 or 60 years old now. They've trained at a very high level, Pro sports is amazing. People don't understand what that lifestyle is like. They train hard, they eat hard. And when they get out of being a pro, their body just falls apart. 60% of them are developing diabetes and obesity. They've taken Emulin and they find out losing weight, cholesterol's dropping, no more inflammation in my joints. Arthritis is inflammation. Emulin will actually help with that inflammation. More alert, sugar's going right to your brain, can perform better. Emulin is helping the sugar get to your muscles. So they are not only performing more like when they were young, but their body recuperates. It heals itself, so to speak. But the cholesterol lowered, the blood pressure will drop. They're almost young again to give you the maximum best dose. It's currently 2 capsules. You know, we could have made a huge capsule. We made them 2 so they're easy to take. Also, just for convenience, we say morning and night or whatever you want to do. It really doesn't matter. You can take 2 at a time at any time of the day. But there are 2 effects of Emulin. 2 effects. One of them is when you take them with something you eat at the same time that you're eating, it will cut those available calories by at least 1/3. So it's almost like having a diet product. You can drink a sweet juice or a cola along with Emulin, and it will cut the available calories by 1/3. Why is that? Well, because it prevents the absorption of all that sugar in your blood. That's a big part of Emulin. And therefore, those just don't enter your body, they don't ever turn into fat. So that's the primary acute part of Emulin. Take it with carbohydrates, it will cut out about 1/3, 32, 33% of the available calories. Now the second chronic effect is long-term. That's after you've taken it 2 or 3 days. And once you get that into your bloodstream, it doesn't matter when you take it because it'll stay, a certain amount will stay in your blood. And that's what we have calculated, that dose, so you'll get a level of Emulin constantly in your blood. And that's how nature intended for you to have. You know, I told you that these sugar chaperones are from nature, meant to be there whenever you have a sugar from nature, and your body's meant to have them in your blood, just like you're always supposed to have protein in your blood, amino acids, vitamins and minerals. They need to be at a certain level. So we've made those at the right dosage. Well, it is a little chain of carbon molecules. A molecule is just the littlest piece of nature. Carbon, oxygen, anything that you talk about like that, silver, those are all just little molecules. And this carbon is formed into a little circular bead. There's 6 of them in most cases, 6 of these carbons. And then they have some oxygen and hydrogen sticking off the side of them, carbohydrate altogether. That, in its simplest form, when you put them together in 6, is a sugar. That's sugar, the stuff that you eat on the table sugar, the white stuff, sugar. Brown sugar, sounds simple, right? Fruit sugar, fructose, it's all the sugar. Sugar in milk, sugar in malt, maltose. Sugar in milk, lactose. So OSE in the scientific world means sugar. So you've got all these sugars together. They're real simple. You put them in your body, they dissolve immediately and go right into your bloodstream. If you take them and put several of these little chains together, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, even into the hundreds, that's called starch. So starch is, again, just sugar. And your body is very capable of dissolving starch down into the individual sugar pieces. Starch is in what? Rice, potatoes, even carrots, and breads. It's just, they're really pure sugar. Okay, I'm sorry, that's the truth. Carbohydrates are not just the sugar on the table and the sweet stuff and fruits. It's everything, almost everything else you eat, including the fiber in fruits and vegetables that are good for you. That's just more sugar put together in even longer chains and then tied up in knots. So it's difficult to digest in that case. And you eat those and a lot of them just pass through you without being digested. but that's not the vast majority of the carbohydrates that we get. The vast majority are in two forms: simple sugars, like table sugar, and starch, like in these rice, potatoes, and you could just go on and on, corn, everything, almost everything you eat, fruits. And again, I said vegetables. They don't have very much free sugar, the sweet stuff, but the lettuces and all these things, they still have lots of carbohydrates. Well, we've been talking about carbohydrates and how refined carbohydrates cause inflammation, and then that leads to other trouble. But what are carbohydrates for? Energy. That's why you take them. You take everything else to build your body, proteins and vitamins and minerals, but the glucose, the sugars, the carbohydrates are there for energy. So if you have efficient carbohydrate management, really what that is saying is you have efficient energy management. Now you've got a lot of different types of carbohydrate in your body, not just these simple sugars. You've got glycogen. So you got the real simple glucose, and then you've got the glucose, more of them together, a little larger bits together. That's glycogen. It stays around in places like your muscles, so that once you use up the glucose in your blood when you're exercising, then it's got these little storage places where it goes to before you can eat. If you take some more sugar while you're exercising, you don't ever get rid of those glycogen molecules. They stay in storage. This is why when you're going into a weight loss program or you're trying to make yourself healthier, you need to stay away from carbohydrates as much as possible, several days even, because your body will use up the glucose and then it goes to the glycogen and uses those up. So until you do that, you'll never truly get all these carbohydrates out of your body. I'm a Florida guy. I started out at Florida, believe it or not, in mechanical engineering. I really did enjoy that, and it's actually helped me understand a lot of the underlying structures that are going on in biology. I ended up going to the University of Tennessee. I got a BS in animal physiology, and then went to the Florida Department of Citrus as a technician. So let's fast forward several years. I was head of technology for Green Giant and a couple other companies. I went back to the Florida Department of Citrus as Director of Research in 2001, right where I started out as a technician. That was really a kick, you know. And one of the first things I looked at is how can we promote citrus? And I will back up one point to say that when I was a technician, I went ahead and got my doctorate at the University of Florida while I had returned to Florida. And thought I was going to spend my life in citrus, but then I went to Green Giant and back. Now I'm in charge of the research, and I said, what can we do here? I really wanted to put it on a commercial basis like I had done in commercial industry. That department, everybody knows about it. It's the one that does all the citrus commercials and the jingles, and they promote research or anything that will market citrus. So I said, what about that grapefruit diet? Have you ever heard about that grapefruit diet? Yeah, everybody has. Is it real or not? So we set out to prove it. We actually shipped fruit from Florida here to California and had it tested to see if it really would cause weight loss. We wanted to be completely neutral. We didn't want to think, oh, they did it in Florida, Florida citrus. No, let's send it to California, our competitors, and have them do it at the Scripps Institute. We did have the honor to get nominated for Nobel Prize twice. Very good. The first one was with our work with inflammation and diabetes, finding out that diabetes was caused by a poison, sugar, and which led to inflammation. Coupled with that was the inflammation in viruses. Viruses attack you and then you become inflamed also. We worked on that. The third one was work with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is also due to inflammation. And so we found out if you could shut down that inflammatory response, you could get rid of the tangles and the proteins, the beta secretases that cause what we see as Alzheimer's. That was the first time around. The second one was based on that same work, which was diabetes, Alzheimer's, and Ebola, tackling Ebola. We were the first ones to actually be able to fight that disease. It was also our care to get these products into Africa, particularly Africa, and areas that are other underrepresented groups of people. I have a lot of experience with thousands of people that have taken this product for some years, thousands and thousands. And we find out that if you have a problem with your blood sugar, if that's what your issue is, type 2 diabetes for instance, you will notice a change in your blood sugar in 4 days. If you're measuring your blood, you'll see a change right away.